Basically what I'm going to do today is just do a quick and dirty review of what Bacopa is, first and foremost. I'm just going to talk about some of the studies that were run in our centre over in Australia. Thanks. Okay, so for those of you who don't know, Bacopa is an Indian herb. It's been used for over 3,000 years in Indian medicine as a memory and intellect enhancer. Currently there's a standardised extract that's been available for use since 1996. I'm just going to run through the animal studies quickly. There is antidepressant effects of Bacopa, basically showing reduced expression of depressive symptoms in rats. There's also antioxidant effects, just showing dose-related increases over 14 and 21 days in key brain areas, frontal cortical, striatal and hippocampal. There is memory enhancement, looking at hyperbaric hypoxia, basically looking at hypoxic rats on Bacopa perform just as well on memory tasks as normoxic rats. One of the coolest ones that is done basically with Bacopa in Alzheimer's, there's some PSAPP, which is the precursor amyloid protein, mice that have been bred. With a high dose of Bacopa over 8 months, there's a decrease of 60% in beta amyloid, which is it's quite cool. It's worth a bit more investigation. In terms of human research, this is basically some from our labs in the last couple of years. We've got Professor Stow, basically did this. Testing was 5 and 12 weeks post at the start of a chronic administration, so that's taking 300 milligrams of Bacopa daily for the full 12 weeks. What we found after 12 weeks was improvement in speed of visual processing, learning rates, memory and state anxiety. And there was no differences between pre-Bacopa and 5 weeks post-administration, suggesting that the effects are kind of build up over time. The same cohort also did a 2-hour post that first 300 milligram dose, and they found no acute effects, which is something I'll come back to in a little while. Furthermore, a couple of years ago there was another pre and post chronic study, which found improvements in a different batch of tests in working memory and improved rapid visual information processing. Again, something I'll talk about a little bit later. Calabrese a couple of years ago looked at an elderly population, which makes a bit of sense given that when you get old you start to lose your function a little bit, your memory starts to go. That's what my mum says anyway. And Bacopa kind of does improve this. So that was kind of the reason for Calabrese doing this study. What he found was improvements in the Stroop and auditory verbal learning. Levels of depression, heart rate and state anxiety also went down. Just to round up that little particular part of the talk, it shows that Bacopa does lead to some cognitive enhancement. It's well tolerated. There's some interesting stuff with Alzheimer's which needs to be kind of tested in humans, but there's no neuroimaging studies. So the first study we're going to talk about from our labs is the acute effects. As I said before, there is no acute effects from the study that was done in 2001. But what we thought was, how about we change the dose a little bit, maybe change the tasks as well. So what we did, basically this thing at the bottom you see is called the multitasking framework. So participants come in and they have this screen split into 4, and in each of those 4 corners you have different tasks. So you've got maths, Stroop, working memory and visual tracking. They do this for 20 minutes and it's shown to reliably increase levels of cortisol and self-reported stress. So what we did was got 17 young participants to come in. They had a baseline test on each of 3 testing days, and on each of those they were administered either placebo, 300 milligrams of Bacopa or 600 milligrams of Bacopa. Then they did a 20-minute continuous multitasking framework, which happened at baseline, 1 hour and 2 hours post-dose, and there was a mood assessment as well. We did find some cognitive effects of the stressor. They're on a poster out in the poster presentation section if you want to have a look at that. Just didn't think I'd have time to go through those today. But in terms of the mood effects, this is quite a nice little graph showing that what you've got in the white bars there are the placebo. So after 1 hour and 2 hours post that initial dose, your mood, self-reported mood, goes down. The light blue bars in the middle is the 300 milligrams. So after 1 hour and 2 hours, your mood is going up. And the dark blue bars is your 600 milligram there. So it's a nice little dose-dependent interaction there. The last thing I'm going to talk about just now is my PhD project. It's a work in progress at the minute. We haven't got a lot of data on it, but I just kind of wanted to probably just show off a little bit about it more than anything else. So given the effects that both animal models and human clinical trials have shown, we basically wanted to know what's happening in the brain, because no one's really had a look at that in humans yet. So we're doing an fMRI project. So I'm looking at 50 to 65-year-olds, again for the reasons before, looking at an old population, trying to just kind of increase kind of declining cognition. People have 4 scans, which is, you can see on the screen here, that they'll have a Bacopa treatment for 90 days and a placebo treatment for 90 days with a 4-month washout. So there is a crossover design there. So 4 scans altogether, 2 bookends in each treatment. The task that they'll do in there is a rapid visual information processing task. So the left-hand side, those numbers there show responses to 3 consecutive odd or even numbers in a number stream. So it's a minute long, and you're getting a number every 600 milliseconds. So it's a test of memory and attention. The control task that we got them to do, just to make sure that the motor response was measured, was compared, and just to kind of compare for the actual seeing of the numbers, just have to respond whenever they see a 0. So the hypothesis would be that changes in behavioural performance and the tasks due to Bacopa administration and changes of the bold signal. We band around this theory at our centre about neural efficiency quite a lot. So basically what I'll show you here is the results, but this is just the baseline from 7 people so far. We're still adding data collections ongoing. We are seeing some increases in bold signal in the precentral gyrus, inferior frontal in the left hemisphere at least, and bilateral increase in the prickiness. So we did this by generating a task greater than baseline a control versus baseline mask, and got the task from there. The inferior frontal gyrus is quite interesting, given that that's linked a little bit with response inhibition, which would make sense in the task. But as I said about neural efficiency, we don't know whether Bacopa is going to modulate this in terms of that increase in the bold signal, or whether it's going to decrease because the brain's working better as a result. But hopefully in the next year or so, I'll be able to tell you the actual answers. And that is... Any questions?
Yes. Thank you very much.